Good evening, everybody. Good afternoon to some of you, and especially to Dr. Jean and Dr. Selova, including Professor Bedelo, early morning in Japan and Korea. A warm welcome to all of you. My name is Muruti Lidwaba. I'm speaking to you from Johannesburg. And this is the Session 8 webinar, International Association of Academicians for Peace, Perspective from Academicians. The title is Breaking Down the Walls, Pursuing Interdependence in the Community for Peace. We have got 7 speakers tonight, or this afternoon. Our order, we are going to start with Dr. Jean doing the opening remarks. Because of time, we are not going to read your bios, but your bios will be put on the chart for other people to see. Depending on time, if we have time, we will take 2 or 3 questions at the end of the session. But we want to listen to you, so we are not necessarily going to prioritize, the questions. The order of the speakers will be, as I said, Dr. Jean will do the opening remarks, followed by Professor Ndongo in Senegal. Dr. Safonicheva in Russia would follow, and then Professor Bedelo in Japan. We would have Professor Puaris, Mr. Yamazaki, and then Dr. Selova will do the closing remarks at the end. So ladies and gentlemen, as I said, it is my honor and privilege indeed to moderate this session. And each speaker would have 7 minutes. I hope that you are able to convey your thoughts within this given time. Without further ado, I'm going to invite Dr. Jean, the president of Unification Thought Institute International and the chairman of the Hyojong Academy in Korea. Dr. Jean, if you can give us your opening remarks.
Thank you, Chairman, and good afternoon, and thank you for making effort to participate from each of your countries in the International Leadership Conference, especially in this International Association of Academics for Peace. I would like to speak briefly about the problem interdependence and how it can best bring solution to current issues facing our society and world now. As you know, there is strength in interdependence as individual cooperate families work out their differences. Societies solve problems together. Nations also find ways to communicate and make peace. The ideal of interdependence, according to unification thought, is misleading and meaningless. However, unless there is center a universal conscience or God as its cause. Therefore, today, I want to stress that we must centralize God within our work for interdependence on all levels. The theory of interdependence can solve the polarity between rich person and poor facing capitalistic society today. With the concept of God as parents, we can solve the issue of self-centered individualism, which blossomed after Enlightenment and the French Revolution. However, people of conscience are not able to continue pursuing their own interests and desires despite the rule of so-called freedom. This is why, as we witness the fall of atheistic communism, so we will witness the fall of self-centered free democracies, where the individual reigns and God is excluded. The solution to individualism is what can be called familialism. When individuals ever playing against each other and fighting for their own rights, opinions, and desires, acknowledge each other as family, the jungle style confrontation occurring in the West can be calmed. When we became brother and sister and acknowledge our parents, our conscience, and God, the polarity between rich and poor can be resolved. For the lack of time, I must finish my remark. The COVID-19 pandemic has allowed us to consider the concept of interdependence and how we can solve elements of selfishness and greed in our large society based on family. In our confinement at home, we are beginning to think about the seeds that we are sowing within our family. Please consider your gut or the conscience and how it can become a seed for creating a new culture based on interdependence. Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jean. And we are especially grateful that so early, in the early hours of the morning in Korea, you are able to be with us here. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Dr. Jean. Okay, then we follow up Dr. Jean's opening remarks with the presentation from Dr. Ndongo in Senegal. Dr. Ndongo, the floor is yours.
Our true mother, your excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the world is going through an unprecedented health crisis that caught by surprise even the most powerful countries, with consequences that are yet to be assessed. In fact, the COVID-19 pandemic has generated new discussions at the intersection of health and security and failed the most sophisticated contingency plans. As a result, it caused nations to think of themselves first and raise blockades through border closures. However, as the crisis evolved and in the absence of vaccine, people have come to realize that it could also be an opportunity for unexplored solutions to face shared challenges. The more so, the pandemic hit harder the wealthiest and the most powerful nations and redefined global geopolitics and put nations of the West as well as those of the South after those of the East to doubt about their abilities to address adequately the human, social, economic, and potentially political impacts of the coronavirus crisis. Experts worried about the impact of COVID-19 in Africa due to weak healthcare systems, lack of access to personal protection equipment, lack of funding, insufficient healthcare personnel, and inefficient data transmission. It was feared that the pandemic could be difficult to keep under control on the continent and could cause huge economic problems if it spread widely. As such, many preventive measures have been implemented in different countries in Africa, including travel restrictions, flights and events cancellation, school and border closures. It is, however, interesting to note that due to its demographic, Africa is a continent with young population, the health impact of COVID-19 appears much less severe in Africa than in the USA, in China, or in European countries. In fact, figures of the damage showed a resilient African continent. To illustrate, in a recent article from the American newspaper USA Today, out of 36 countries, selected nations that performed well in the management of the pandemic, Senegal has come second. This good ranking was based on the following factors. First, availability of test results in 24 hours, even less, temperature checks in public places, availability of masks to the population, transparent communication. Despite the fragility of its health system, Senegal has come after New Zealand, but before the US, Germany, and Canada. Moreover, in this context of COVID-19, Africa is getting more and more connected to the global world despite border closures through virtual communication and cargo flights. Conversely, Africa is also attracting more global powers to cooperate on goods and services that are critical in the development of an interconnected global market. In this respect, online services such as mobile banking have tremendously developed in Africa. Now, as regards opportunities, the post-COVID-19 era seems to have generated a new spirit of resilience in Africa, especially in the area of education. Names of medical experts in our Hall of Fame, local people from our universities. In Senegal, Professor Moussa Seydi, his team and a group of anthropologists from Cheikh Anta Diop University brought hope to millions of people through their dedication and proven expertise as lead health personnel. Science departments and their students provided sanitizers. Technology departments were able to produce sophisticated equipment to use in treatment centers. Students from various universities took advantage of the period after lockdown to launch sensitization campaigns in various regions of the country to show how to use sanitary measures. Online courses through various channels flourished to ensure continuity of classes, especially from those students and pupils sitting for exams. It has become obvious now that African and European think tanks could work together better through online courses. Medical research was also given priority through adequate funding from the state. Teams have been set up to explore medicine from universities as well as our pharmacopy, that is our plant patrimony. It should be noted that most African countries received the pandemic after Asia, Europe, and America. Therefore, African countries had time to learn and develop and adapt their strategies. The fight against COVID-19 has also been a period of great spirituality. Most people believe that only God can save humanity from this calamity caused by a virus so minute, yet so ferocious to kill in large numbers. Many share the message that it was God sent, a warning to humanity, as echoed by these words from the Mother of Peace, Dr. Hak Ja Han Moon, who said in a recent address, I quote, "We wish for a community of all people, one family of humankind centering on the heavenly parent, united under the values of interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universal values," end quote. To conclude, while the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic raised serious concerns, nations, either European or African, found new ways of coping with it by reinventing responses from their traditions as well as from the environment. African universities and schools have not been lagging behind. They were part and parcel of the war on COVID. I would like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Ndongo. Thank you for telling the story of Senegal. It's interesting and very warm-hearting to hear that Senegal has managed to contain the spread of COVID-19. Thank you, Professor Ndongo, for your thoughts. We would now go to Russia to listen to the presentation of Dr. Olga Savonicheva. Dr. Savonicheva.
Dear colleagues, dear organizers, thank you very much for the invitation to take part in such significant event. It's a great honor for me to present our experience in transforming medical education in COVID and post-COVID period. We have some solutions, and it is a great honor for me to share our experience with you. First of all, I would like to present our first Moscow State Medical University. Sechenov University of Life Sciences is the largest research medical school in Russia. Its history begins with the establishment of the medical faculty at Imperial Moscow University in 1758. It means that 2 years ago, we celebrated 260th anniversary, and today our university offers undergraduate and postgraduate courses taught in Russian and English in all areas of medicine, biology, and biotechnology, including specialist degrees, master's programs, clinical residency programs, PhD programs, and a lot of programs for population. Sechenov University develops medicine of future on the solid academic basis of clinical medicine. And the campus includes more than 20 training and medical buildings. And of course, the value of our Moscow State Medical University are our students. And we have more than 19,000 students from 83 foreign universities, and our staff of teachers, professors, and academicians. We have more than 2,000 faculty members. The strategy of Sechenov University is to specialize and concentrate resources on the model research in personalized health management for increasing the quality of life and longevity. And the strategic goal of university consists of joining the international research and education community, concentrates global talent, knowledge, and technologies to become the university #1 in life sciences in Russia. The target model drives its sustainable transformation to a world-class university with balanced focus on multidisciplinary education, research, and partnership with industry. 5 years ago, Sechenov First Moscow State Medical University entered the All-Russian Academic Excellence Project to promote the least 5 universities into the top 100 of the world's best institutions of higher education. Now, Sechenov University is fully integrated into global informational, educational, and research space, acting as the mainstream and promoter of cutting-edge knowledge, both in Russia and on the world stage. We realize a lot of medical research and social projects. We participate in innovation, national technological initiatives, in governmental projects, in active and healthy aging projects, etc. And of course, annually, Sechenov University hosts more than 20 international scientific and educational events, conferences, symposia, seminars, training schools, roundtables, and working groups. We are including into a unique international science communication project, Nobel Talks. And of course, about international education, we can say that about 2,500 foreign students and postgraduates from 73 countries study at Sechenov University today. Far abroad countries are mainly represented by students from Malaysia, China, Syria, India, Republic of Maldives, Vietnam. Also, we have a lot of students from Israel, Brazil, and from some European countries, Germany, UK, and from our friendly neighbors from Belarus and Ukraine. And of course, everything have changed when we faced the pandemic COVID-19. We can say that 5-10 years ago, we thought that we don't face to infection diseases. We speak about non-communicable diseases. But during the past 5 months, Sechenov University has been at the forefront of the fight against this pandemic. All 4 our university clinical hospitals have been redesigned into COVID-19 clinics. Students, residents, graduate students fought for the life and health of patients, together with the doctors of the clinical centers and scientists. Here you can see the main clinical centers, and we can say that more than 2,000 beds were redesigned into beds for COVID-19 patients. Restrictive anti-epidemic measures to prevent the spread of coronavirus infections were established. Students were transferred to distance learning from March 16, 2020. The university organized the work of students and teaching staff through the electronic informational and educational environment. The unified educational portal of Sechenov University works on a new platform for students. The necessary conditions for computer distance learning and personal growth were created. The faculty of the departments, in the shortest possible time, developed live platforms and posted all the necessary materials for study both in Russian and in English on the unified educational portal. And the digital university model was the following: lectures, links to educational materials, situational tasks were in the open access for students of the site of the unified educational portal. Students regularly passed tasks, contacted with their teachers online, both using the education portal and other internet resources, for example, Zoom and Skype. This became possible thanks to implementation of the digital university model, which includes a database management system, digital education technologies, individual educational objectives, trajectories, and the competence of the digital economy. The pandemic changed the development of medical science. It promotes a rethinking of the role of medical universities in addressing urgent medical challenges. The Federal Center of Combating COVID-19 was deployed on the basis of Sechenov University to consult all educational institutions in the country. Clinical trials of vaccine against the new coronavirus infection have been successfully completed. And we can say that many young medical doctors and volunteers took part in clinical trials. New drugs are being developed and tested. Doctors and scientists are developing new protocols for treatment and medical rehabilitation. And a new strategic model for the development of the system of higher medical education 2020 is proposed and headed by the rector of Sechenov University. The main tasks are realization of national projects, health, healthcare, and demography, improving the quality of medical care for the population, the creation of medical faculties and technical universities and new master's programs in the area of medical cybernetics, biochemics, biophysics, biotechnology. They develop a new model, advanced content, digital transformation, and new flexible educational programs on the agenda, as well as creation of a new platform for the exchange of resources. And as we marked in previous slides, the main strategy of Sechenov University in 2020 is to increase the number of Russian and foreign students. We can say that participating in projects related to preventing the spread of pandemic, promoting common human values, and has increased the attractiveness of medical education. Now we have a lot of master's programs, interdisciplinary. We have many clinical centers. We have many training centers for students, and we understand that before students go to patients, they may receive information via Zoom in distance format, but it is impossible to receive experience in treatment of patients. So we have not so much distant information, and majority of our classes take part in hospital clinics. And it is possible because of active cooperation of Moscow State Medical University with the following international professional organizations, unions, and associations. First of all, it is World Health Organization, International Association of Universities, Eurasian Association of Universities, World Federation of Medical University. Of course, we have very close connection with the professional association, for example, European Association for Predictive, Preventive, and Personalized Medicine. So, we are pleased to invite our colleagues and friends from the UPF to our university to discuss the issue of education and invite young personnel, young students to gain new knowledge and promote common values. Dear colleagues, thank you very much for invitation to this event, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Savonicheva, for your thoughts. Really appreciate it. Without further ado, I'm going now to invite Professor Simon Bedelo to share his thoughts with us from Japan. Professor Bedelo, the stage is yours, sir.
Yes, I muted myself. Hi, everyone. Thank you again. So this is Simon. I'm joining to you. It's now about 1 o'clock here morning, but I'm so glad to be a part of this distinguished group. So before I start, if you may allow me, I would like to start by sharing my screen because I do have some slides I want to share with you. So give me a few seconds, please. So everyone, as you know, we are here to pursue interdependence in community for peace. And I would like to do so by finding ways to break down walls. And my focus will be on the impacts of online methods as applied to the lifestyles and the values of peoples in Africa. I've divided my talk into 3 sections. First, I would like to discuss the positive impact of online methods on the life of Africans youth. Then I will be moving on to touch on the negative impacts of digital tools on Africa's values. And at the end, I will introduce a possible way for moving forward. But before I get into it, I would like to join some of the things that Dr. Jean and Professor Ndolo just say here. I would like to set the scene just briefly and remind ourselves 2 of the emerging lessons of this ongoing COVID-19. So the first one is that COVID-19 has shown that interdependence and mutual prosperity are unavoidable. It is now clear no one, and I say no one, can exempt themselves from the difficulties of their neighbor. A sneeze in one place yesterday was just a pneumonia, but today a sneeze in one place is a fatal fact in another place. Secondly, online tools are more than ever an essential part of human survival. And us sitting here talking with each other across various time zones, I think we are a perfect example of the power of online tools. Having said that, I'd like to move on now to discussing the positive impact of online methods on African youth. Professor Ndongo already explained it. Online tools have been having a lot of benefit already in Africa. But one thing we have to know, that Africa, despite being the cradle of humanity, still Africa is the youngest in terms of people. About 60% of people in Africa are under 25 years old. Now, this fact is very significant. Why? Because most of the users of online tools in the world actually are young people. So if we consider online tools having such an impact on our lives, and if we consider the fact that most people using them are actually young people, and if we consider that the youth are supposed to be the future, so, and we know that Africa has the youngest population, so I think it's very important to keep that point in mind. Secondly, we all know that out of about 560 million people using the internet in Africa, 40% of those people are on Facebook. And I don't have to say that Facebook today is one of the primary sources for people to get information, share information, get knowledge. And you have about 40% of people using internet in Africa, and all of them being on Facebook. 10 years ago, we had this Arab Spring that swept through North Africa, Tunisia, Egypt. And we know that if the Arab Spring got so bold and got so big and got so wide, it is also because of the use of social media. And then finally, I should say that African youth are also using internet in order to promote cultures. You can see today we have so many YouTube channels where African youth are marketing, showcasing what they have, their music, fashion, and so on. Having said that, I like now to move on to the negative impact of online methods on the value, on the lives and then values of Africa. Yes, online tools are having a lot of impact, positive one. Unfortunately, while these tools open new frontiers and bringing a lot of benefit, unfortunately, they also bring problems. Of course, I shall note that challenges that these online tools bring are not just limited to Africa. We can see even those nations with established democracies are struggling to regulate online materials while upholding the right to free speech. But if we stay in Africa, unfortunately, we will see that there is a proliferation of immoral acts. Internet is making it easier for people to sow seeds of immorality. Internet is making it easier for people to plot scamming schemes, fraud, online fraud. I think probably some of us here, we have received some of those email coming from the wife of former president in somewhere in one country who has like $25 million and wanting to give it to you. Unfortunately, so many of such emails come from somewhere within Africa. But we also have the issue of cyberbullying. 1 in 3 school children in South Africa, and probably in some other countries too, suffer cyber bullying. And in terms of violence against women, 13% of Kenyan female students have experienced harassment. And you also have this very fast spread of this information. So while the online tools have brought a lot of good things to Africa, unfortunately, there are also a lot of bad things happening and spreading because it is so easy. Remember, online tools are there. You can easily share information in such a way that can very quickly and reach widely. So in that case, the question is, what can we do? And this is where I want to spend a little bit more time, if I may, because we know that online tools have the power potential to bring people together, given the basic function of letting information be shared widely, instantly. But we also know that these online tools, they can ruin, they can destroy lives, especially when those tools fall on wrong hands. And it becomes even worse when facts and the truth get eclipsed by distortions. In some places, they call them alternative facts. So in this talk, I would like to adopt the teaching of Reverend and Mrs. Moon, the founders of UPF, especially with regard to the ethics. Reverend and Mrs. Moon emphasize a lot of about individual responsibility. They teach that moral norms arise from conscience and the foundation is goodness itself. So they conclude that the standard of goodness is the standard of conscience. In that case, if we understand that individual responsibility is the key, and that could be the basis for regulating, making sure that we can maximize the values and the benefits that online tools offer. And with that, I thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Bodelo. Apologies that I had to interrupt your talk. Thank you. Once again, let me plead with the panelists to really stay, within the prescribed time. It's a little uncomfortable for me to interrupt when you are speaking. It's not civil. But thank you, Professor Bodelo, for your understanding. And thank you for sharing this very important information with us today. Okay, now we are going to invite Professor Juarez to address us. As I say, as a reminder once again, 7 minutes maximum. Thank you, Professor Juarez. The floor is yours, sir.
Organizadoras deste painel. Agradeço o convite que aceitei com muito gosto para participar neste painel. Há um motivo suplementar para que tenha aderido a esta convocação uma vez mais. Falar de paz e falar de educação.
When I talk about peace and education, and armed people and armies, the fact of working 4 centuries and a half in education, it's a fact of creating a culture for the objective of peace and education as an instrument, be it in old Europe or Africa or another continent. Peace isn't something that is reached with magical words easily as a fruit of any subject. Peace isn't reached, it's conquered through the coexistence of subjective conditions that make it possible. As history demonstrates, we can't look for peace if you're ready for war. We can't to have war if we have so many political problems. We can't live in peace when the world is provoked to face the refugee crisis that continues to affect Europe. These doors that they knock on, the people are afraid to leave open. We can't talk about peace and have xenophobia as we have in the world. We cannot talk about peace and leave people in illness without state care, vulnerable people, those who are more fragilized, the poor, those who suffer in this world that's hedonic and that don't have to share what they have, because the political style excludes them. We can't abandon old people and children and leave them as marginal people. You cannot pretend, if you're in favor of peace, forget that education is its first motivation. It's its first
Estão a conseguir traduzir-me? Não se pode dizer em público. Não se pode dizer em público que se luta pela paz e olvidar a rigorosa observância dos direitos humanos em todas as suas dimensões: política, económica, social, laboral, cultural e ambiental. Não se pode almejar a paz num quadro político não democrático, pois as eleições fraudulentas, as ditaduras e a repressão, longe de conduzirem à paz, provocam as guerras e legitimam-nas. Não se pode preconizar a paz em sociedades assimétricas, produtoras de exclusão pelo fator pobreza, onde a amplitude salarial é medonha, onde os direitos laborais são inexistentes ou coartados. Não se pode construir a paz com sistemas criminais violadores dos direitos básicos, que já Beccaria, em 1764, propunha como imprescritíveis e que foram erigidos em alfa e ômega da justiça penal, quer na Declaração de 4 de julho de 1776 nos Estados Unidos, quer na Declaração dos Direitos do Homem e do Cidadão pós-Revolução Francesa, em 26 de agosto de 1789. Não se pode fazer a paz enquanto a iniquidade continuar a morar na casa de juízes ou de procuradores, de polícias e afins, numa salganhada que arremeda à justiça, sendo a mais vil injustiça, não raramente assegurada pela tortura física ou psicológica ou pela perseguição e até assassínio de opositores, como referiram Peters e José Sócrates, bem evidenciaram. Não se pode acreditar na paz sem que exista liberdade de imprensa e de comunicação, sem se fomentar o pensamento crítico e livre, pois, de contrário, os autómatos substituem os cidadãos e a paz não é compaginável com a censura ou autocensura. Não se pode viver em paz se o Estado for reduzido ao mínimo, ou seja, a mero espectador do enriquecimento de poucos e da ausência de condições de vida da esmagadora maioria das pessoas. Não se pode levar a sério que se fala de paz quando o Estado Social de Direito Democrático está fora de jogo, limitando-se a subsidiar as empresas e as negociatas privadas, prenhes de ganância nos setores básicos. Não se pode aceitar qualquer compromisso com a paz enquanto subsistir a pena de morte, seja onde for, seja por que motivo for, essa infâmia cruel que peca sempre por excesso e por defeito, como proclamou o escritor português Miguel Torga em 1967. Não se pode cantar a lousa à paz e deixar morrer gente em Lampedusa, ou outros como Aylan Kurdi nas areias de uma praia turca. Não se pode perceber a paz enquanto as prisões estiverem pejadas de presos políticos, ainda que eufemisticamente se lhes chame políticos presos. Não se pode conceber a paz em cenários de violências étnicas, raciais ou em contextos de xenofobia, racismo, misoginia, traduzidos em toda a gama de abusos, incluindo sexuais, de mutilações e estropiamentos, ou como vítimas prioritárias de desmandos policiais. Não se podem romper nas alamedas da paz a centenas de desigualdades. Sem homeostasia socioeconómica, não se pode ter paz sem emancipação dos povos e das pessoas em todos os seus graus e qualidades. Não se pode inventar a paz sem que existam políticas seguras de educação. Caso contrário, teremos outra paupérrima, criando condições para a sua quebra a qualquer momento. Uma paz não vinculada, uma paz não vinculadora, fora da matriz socioeconómica que a fomenta e promove. Uma paz fantasmagórica.
It's a peace that was talked about a game of marionettes. So it was important to have a politics, to have citizens in a community and for the fundamental rights. An education policy that is not satisfied, as happened in my countries, in the time where I was born, that you could read and learn how to read and to write. Today, we changed several vertents and they're not respecting peace. Now we can see the base stone for education, and we have the education that has to help every child. There's no parity. We need promotion of integration and social qualification and personal satisfaction. We cannot only informate and educate, but we need to educate for the development, for the citizenship, and for each and every person can be conformed looking for the fundamental rights, someone who's not connected to poverty. From this education, the full subject can be formed, exerting its full citizenship, someone who thinks and argues, someone who works and rests, and who participates in the miracle communities. Peace will be realized if it is adapted to people and not to enterprises. If it's based on public policies of education and prevention of violence and delinquents. If we can prevent the risk situations and stimulate the promotion of inclusion. Let's mention President Allende, who said 47 years ago, that I would say as a conclusion, that with education, we'll open pathways where people can pass, free people can pass to build a better society. And that peace, this dream that was left for later, can finally be a natural and serene consequence.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Professor Poares. There was a time when we couldn't hear what you are saying because there was no translation, but we catch the spirit of your passion. Thank you, Prof. Okay, now I would like to welcome Yamazaki-san to give us his address.
Hello, everybody. The organizer of this forum, the United UPF, its founders, Dr. and Mrs. Moon, showed high respect to academicians. He said, academicians are the backbone of creating the ideal world. Earlier in this session, Dr. Jean referred to conscience for the whole purposes. The conscience shared in a family, society, nation, and the world is critical in developing their stability, peace, and cooperation among their members. And I think it is partly the role of educators, academicians, and scientists who are here to formulate such shared conscience by exploring and disseminating knowledges. The UPF's founders actually practiced their own conviction by sponsoring the International Conference on the Unity of Sciences since 1970s through the next 20 years. Then Mother Moon set up a new project of academicians this year, that is the International Association of Academicians for Peace, under whose umbrella we are gathering today. In their pursuit for peace, two important declarations were made by Dr. and Mrs. Moon in particularly academic settings. In one of the International Conference for the Unity of Sciences Father Moon boldly proposed a global road network scheme called International Highway Project. It is now promoted as a Peace Road Project. On another occasion in Geneva 1985, Professors World Peace Academy, another international network of scholars created by the founders, declared end of communism together with noted scholars in a Geneva conference. Dr. Moon's prediction was materialized 5 years later, as you know, when the Berlin Wall was torn down, symbolizing an elimination of the ideological wall in Europe. But in Asia, the 38th parallel still divides the same people of Korea. Besides, other wars between nations have become harder and higher as migrants and refugees have encountered in the last decade. More ominously, wars separating other faith traditions look more fortified, fueling political disputes. How can we realize a world of interdependence tearing down the walls? Human development begins with a total dependence upon parents. Then their growth is measured as their sense and capacity of independence get stronger. As people are matured in loving and serving capacities, they perform interdependence with other people in wider societies. In this sense, interdependence is a testimony of human maturity and worth in society. Therefore, a call for interdependence is not a pretext for more help by one party to another, or an excuse to seek for helps in the name of multilateralism. On the contrary, it is a distinctive value and principle which is apparent and pervasive in the nature and the universe. The concept of interdependence is more relevant to the highest value and norm of altruism, or what Dr. Moon calls true love. It may belong to a realm of heavenly wisdom. That is why practicing interdependence is not easy for ordinary folks like myself. Our human natures tend to think and act self-protecting, self-justifying, if not self-centered. As Dr. Ndongo of Senegal pointed out in his remark today, facing the corona's challenge, nations are inclined to take such nationalistic drives, even when the virus spread beyond borders. That is why we need to reinforce our conviction that our behaviors and policies towards interdependence are morally right, rationally reasonable, and ultimately beneficial to everyone concerned. Thus, we need a theoretical base of interdependence, as Dr. Jin tried to indicate in his remark. The unification thought is one very vital reference point to augment this kind of theoretical efforts. We also need methods and policies to apply the principle of interdependence. Without concrete and systematic methodology, an idea cannot be substantiated on the ground. This is the mission of the academicians and scientists support the global drive towards the interdependent global community, which is inevitable, as some of you have already mentioned, as we have faced this corona challenge. We have come to realize that fact, but we are still unable to implement it. Therefore, we definitely have to work hard, and with such theories, discourses, and policies being produced by us, the academicians, scholars, and educators, I do hope this umbrella IAAP, International Association of Academicians for Peace, in the nearest future, will confidently issue what I may call Declaration of Interdependence in one of our forums, or hopefully at the United Nations, to declare that all peoples, nations are interdependent. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Yamazaki-san. Thank you for your thoughts and your sharing. We are coming to the tail end of our webinar. And for now, I want to invite Dr. Thomas Selova to give us the closing remarks. Dr. Selova is the president of the Sungwang UP Academy, Graduate Academy, and he's also the president of PWPA International. Dr. Selova, if you can give us your closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Reverend Ndwaba. Thank you for your wonderful moderating of this session. Your Excellencies, scholars, now I can say friends, it is my pleasure to participate together with you in this Europe, Middle East, Africa, IAAP webinar session. I have learned many things from the insights that you have presented, and I really would like to list them all, but because of time, I can only say thank you to each of our speakers today. I also want to thank Dr. Hak Ja Han Moon for the motherly push that has brought us together. In addition to specifically peace-related studies, all academicians are or can be engaged in peace building, both within and between the academic fields in which we are working. In whatever academic field your chosen vocation lies, together we must strive to be peace builders who contribute to the recognition of interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universal values. Besides all the other walls between people, between groups, between nations that need to be broken down, academicians also need to break down the walls that have grown up between fields and disciplines, that have divided our work into camps. We need to overcome those barriers, doing our work together in the spirit of interdependence for a community of peace. Although academicians can sometimes be quite critical of one another, as long as the critique is dialogical, is intended to seek truth and understanding with ultimate inclusiveness, then it can be counted as constructive toward peace building. The role of academicians in support of interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universal values is to vigorously conduct our research into all fields of human knowledge, but then to share that for the purpose of the greater common good that we hold in our hearts and minds together. Many years ago, the Canadian philosopher Marshall McLuhan suggested that the medium is the message, and we are seeing the truth of his words today. Here we are, concerned scholars all, from many countries and many fields, for all those who are listening and participating in this program all over the world, interacting together, mutually striving for world peace, and doing that by the medium of internet webinar technology. We've heard of some of the dangers of the internet, but we must Step forward and use this medium intentionally, actively, more and more. This is what we have done together today, and this is what we ought to do from now on, more and more, in the present circumstances of our world. At the heart of the core concepts of interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universal values is mutuality itself, which we are manifesting together today. Mutuality is that bond of togetherness which links us, each and all, not only to one another, but also to the world of all beings and to the great being, our Heavenly Parent. I can see clearly that IAAP will have a bright future, and I look forward to working together with all of you more and more. Thank you very much for your participation, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Selova. I think we can take one question. Unfortunately, time is running out. I've got one, I'm gonna take one question in this last 2 minutes, excuse me. And this question is directed to Professor Simon Bedelo. It goes like this, Professor, if you can answer in 1 minute. As a way forward, you suggest a new type of consciousness, referring to individual responsibility and one's original mind. When we have massive proliferation of digital and online facilities, what institutions or systems can possibly guide people to what you call a new type of consciousness? Professor Bedelo, if you can respond to this, as I say, time is of the essence in 1 or 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you very much for this. Actually, I didn't have much time to talk about, but I've been following Reverend and Mrs. Moon. I'm now 57, and then I've been following teaching since I was 16, so about 40 years now. It is basically based on the experience I have reading and studying the words that Reverend Moon gives. So actually, there is no institution yet in that sense, but I think UPF has been working on what they call character education. Probably that could be the starting point. And then from there, hopefully, I don't want to call it institutionalized, but that could be the starting point. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Bedelo. Yeah, the challenge with this is that, you know, there's so much to be said in so little time. So ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of our webinar. I would just like to ask the webinar manager to put the program for tomorrow, so that in this last minute, Matteo, if you can put on the screen to invite people for our program tomorrow. As you can see on the screen, our next session, we've been going since yesterday, and tomorrow is our 3rd day, September the 13th. So IAED, this perspective from the business leaders, this session will start at 16 hours CET, 14 hours GMT. And as usual, you are all invited to come and hear the perspective from business leaders. This is tomorrow, Sunday, at this time. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings to an end our webinar today, and we are very grateful. Once again, we want to really express our deep and heartfelt gratitude for all the presenters. As I said, unfortunately, I had to rush you in terms of time, and we hope that, you know, going forward, we can participate in other events, and these ideas can be more articulated and more time to talk about them. Thank you very much, and once again, everybody, adios, au revoir. Thank you.
Maxime.